My name is Anna, and I thought I had done everything right. For 18 years, every extra shift, every skipped vacation, every worn-out pair of sneakers went into one place. The college fund for my daughter, Mia, $199,000. That number was my private trophy, proof that I had beaten the odds as a single mom. Then one morning, I opened my banking app and felt the floor vanish beneath me. My joint savings account, the one I had naively kept with my father for security ever since I was 19, showed a balance of exactly zero. One single transaction, $199,000 withdrawn under authorized user. The name next to it was his, my dad. I drove to my parents' house with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, replaying every sacrifice I had made for that money. The night shifts at the hospital when Mia was small, the birthdays I worked through, the vacations I promised her and never delivered. When I walked through the door, my father was sitting in his leather armchair, reading the newspaper like it was any other Sunday. He barely looked up when I stood in front of him. "Where is Mia's college fund?" My voice came out low and deadly calm. He folded the newspaper slowly, deliberately, the way he always did when he wanted to remind you that his time was more valuable than yours. "I reallocated those funds," he said, like he was discussing a minor budget adjustment at work. "Your brother needed capital for his restaurant. It is an investment in this family's future." I felt my legs go weak. That was my daughter's future. 18 years of my life went into that account. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were cold. The same cold I remembered from every report card that was not perfect, every decision he disapproved of, every moment I had failed to be the son he wanted instead of the daughter he got. "You made your choices, Anna. You got pregnant at 19. You refused to give the baby up. You insisted on raising her alone." He shrugged, actually shrugged, like he was listing items on a grocery receipt. "Daniel has a real chance to build something. A business, a legacy. Your money was sitting there doing nothing." "It was doing something," I whispered. "It was going to send my daughter to college." He stood up then, towering over me the way he had my entire childhood. "Mia can take out loans like everyone else. Daniel needed this now. I am the head of this family, and I made a decision. That is final." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I heard myself ask a question I already knew the answer to. "Does Mom know?" Something flickered in his eyes, just for a second. "Your mother understands how this family works." I turned and walked out without another word. If I had stayed one more minute, I would have said things I could never take back. Or maybe I would have finally said the things I should have said years ago. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My mind kept cycling through the same images. Mia's face when she saw her projected college costs and realized we could actually afford her dream school. The spreadsheet I had kept since she was a baby, tracking every deposit, every milestone. My phone buzzed. Mom's name on the screen. I almost did not answer, but something made me swipe. "Anna." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Are you okay? I saw your car leave." "Did you know?" I asked flatly. "Did you know he was going to do this?" A long pause. Then she started crying. Not the polite, controlled tears my mother usually allowed herself. These were ugly, desperate sobs. "He told me it was temporary. He said he would pay it back before Mia needed it. He promised, Anna. He always promises." "And you believed him?" She choked on the word. "I have believed him for 32 years. I do not know how to stop." There was something in her voice I had never heard before. Not just guilt, fear. "Mom, what are you not telling me?" Another long silence. I could hear her breathing, shallow and ragged. "Anna, he's done this before. Not just to you." My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "The inheritance from my mother, the savings I had before we got married, money I set aside for emergencies over the years." Her voice dropped so low I could barely hear her. "It is all gone. Every time I tried to ask questions, he made me feel crazy, told me I was imagining things, that I did not understand finances." I closed my eyes, pressing my forehead against the steering wheel. "How much, Mom? How much has he taken from you?" She was crying so hard now she could barely speak. "I stopped counting years ago. I was too afraid to know the real number." In that moment, something shifted inside me. This was not just about Mia's college fund anymore. This was not just about one act of betrayal. This was about decades of control, manipulation, and theft hidden behind the title of head of the family. My father thought he could take whatever he wanted because he had always gotten away with it. He thought I would cry, complain, and eventually accept it the way my mother had. He had no idea who I had become. "Mom," I said slowly, "I need you to tell me everything. Every account, every transaction, every lie he told you. Can you do that?" She hesitated. I could practically hear 30 years of conditioning telling her to stay quiet, to keep the peace, to protect the family image. Then, in a voice I had never heard from her before, she said, "Yes, I think it is time." I hung up and stared at my parents' house through the windshield, the perfect lawn, the expensive car in the driveway, the facade of success my father had built on the backs of the women in his life. If you discovered that your father had been stealing from your family for decades, would you walk away to keep the peace? Or would you finally make him face what he had done? That night, I did not sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and a notebook filled with dates, amounts, and questions. My mother's revelations kept echoing in my head. He has done this before, not just to you. When Liam came over the next morning, I told him everything. The empty account, my father's cold justification, my mother's tearful confession about years of financial abuse hidden behind closed doors. Liam listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with every detail. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said, "this is bigger than I thought, but it is not hopeless." I let out a bitter laugh. "He took everything, Liam, and apparently he has been doing it for decades. How is that not hopeless?" He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Because your father made the same mistake every arrogant man makes. He assumed nobody would ever check his work. He assumed the women in his life would stay quiet forever." Liam tapped the table. "You have records. Your mother has memories. And I am willing to bet he left a trail a mile wide because he never thought anyone would look." He was right. My father had always treated finances like his personal kingdom. He made the decisions. He controlled the accounts. He doled out money like favors to be earned. But that same arrogance meant he probably never bothered to cover his tracks. "Step 1, Liam said, "we organize everything you have. Step 2, we talk to the bank. Step 3, we find a lawyer who specializes in financial abuse and recovery." "Financial abuse," I repeated. The words felt strange in my mouth. I had heard that term before, but always associated it with other families. Worse families, not mine. But what else would you call it when someone systematically drains the accounts of people who trust them? "Step 4, Liam added quietly, "we figure out what your brother knows." Daniel, my younger brother, the golden child who could do no wrong. Growing up, the difference in how my father treated us was obvious to everyone except, apparently, my father. Daniel got a car for his 16th birthday. I got a lecture about earning my own way. Daniel's college was fully paid. I worked 2 jobs and still graduated with debt. Daniel's failed business ventures were learning experiences. My pregnancy at 19 was proof of poor judgment. Now Daniel was opening a restaurant, funded by my daughter's future. "Do you think Daniel knows where the money came from?" I asked. Liam considered this. "Your dad probably told him it was family money, an investment. Daniel might not have asked questions because he did not want to know the answers. Or because he was too entitled to care," I thought, but did not say. That afternoon I drove to the bank. the same branch where my father had opened the joint account with me 18 years ago. I was 19, terrified, with a newborn and no idea how to manage money. My father had offered to help me set up a savings account. "Put my name on it too," he had said. "In case something happens to you, I can protect the money for Mia." I had been so grateful, so naive. The branch manager was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes who clearly sensed something was wrong the moment I sat down. "I need information about a recent withdrawal from my joint savings account," I said, keeping my voice steady. $199,000 was removed without my knowledge or consent. She typed for a moment, then looked at me carefully. "I see the transaction here. It was processed by the other account holder with proper identification, legally, on a joint account." "Both parties can withdraw," I finished. "I know, but I want documentation, everything. Who processed it, what was said, when it happened?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I can provide that." 20 minutes later, I walked out with a folder of printed records. The withdrawal had been made in person. My father had walked into this bank, smiled at the teller, and walked out with my daughter's future in his pocket. There was one detail that caught my attention. On the withdrawal slip, under Purpose of Withdrawal, he had written, "Family investment." Not his investment, family investment, as if he was entitled to decide what that meant for all of us. My next stop was a lawyer Liam had found through a colleague. Her name was Sandra Chen, and her office walls were lined with diplomas and certificates that suggested she had seen every kind of family nightmare imaginable. I told her my story. She took notes without visible reaction until I mentioned my mother's revelation about decades of similar behavior. Then she looked up sharply. "Your mother is willing to testify to this?" "I think so. She is scared, but she is also tired of being scared." Sandra nodded slowly. "What your father did with your account is legally gray. Joint accounts give both parties access. But what you are describing, a pattern of financial control, manipulation, and misappropriation over many years, that is different. That is financial abuse." "What can we actually do about it?" "For your specific case, we pursue civil recovery, unjust enrichment, breach of fiduciary duty, since the account was explicitly for your daughter's education." She paused. "For the broader pattern, if your mother is willing to cooperate, we might be able to build something much larger. Depending on what we find, this could potentially involve forensic accountants and, in extreme cases, criminal charges." Criminal charges. Against my own father. I thought about Mia, deleting college newsletters because she believed her future was gone. I thought about my mother, crying on the phone, admitting she had lost count of how much had been stolen from her. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Everything. Bank statements, emails, any communication where your father discussed this account or its purpose. And I need to talk to your mother as soon as she is ready." That evening, I sat with my mom at her kitchen table while my father was out. She looked older than I had ever seen her, her hands trembling as she pushed a shoebox across the table toward me. "I kept things," she whispered. "Over the years, receipts that did not match what he told me, statements I was not supposed to see. I hid them because—" She trailed off. "Because you knew something was wrong," I finished. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I was so ashamed, Anna. I let him do this. I let him control everything because I was afraid of what would happen if I fought back." I took her hands in mine. "You are not the one who should be ashamed, Mom. And you are not alone anymore." We spent 3 hours going through that shoebox together. What we found made my stomach turn. Transfers from accounts my mother did not know existed. Payments to businesses she had never heard of. A pattern of financial manipulation spanning nearly 3 decades. My father had not just stolen from me. He had built his entire comfortable life on money that was never his to take. As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed, a text from a number I did not recognize. "I heard you were asking questions about Dad. Stop now or you will regret it. Family handles things privately." I stared at the message for a long moment. Daniel. My brother had finally entered the chat. I did not respond to Daniel's text that night. Instead, I screenshot it and forwarded it to Sandra with a note. My brother is already trying to silence me. Does this count as evidence? Her reply came within minutes. Save everything. Do not engage. Let him think you are backing down. The next few days felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Every family group chat message, every casual call from relatives, every awkward silence when I picked up groceries in our small town, all of it reminded me that word was spreading. Anna is making trouble. Anna is being dramatic. Anna is trying to destroy the family over money. Nobody mentioned that the money was mine. Nobody asked why I might be upset. The narrative had already been set by my father, the man everyone trusted because he wore nice suits and spoke with authority. But I had stopped caring about narratives. I had evidence. Sandra's forensic accountant finished her preliminary review of my mother's documents and my own records. The pattern was undeniable. Over 30 years, my father had systematically moved money out of joint accounts, investments, and even my mother's personal inheritance into ventures that benefited him alone or funded my brother's endless string of opportunities. Conservative estimate, Sandra told me over the phone. We are looking at somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000 misappropriated over 3 decades. Your $199,000 is just the latest withdrawal. The number made me dizzy. $500,000 stolen from his own wife and daughter. What happens now? I asked. Now we file your individual case for recovery of Mia's college fund, and if your mother agrees, a larger civil action for financial abuse and recovery of marital assets. She is scared of him, Sandra. I know. But I have worked with women like your mother before. Sometimes the scariest step is the first one. After that, they find strength they did not know they had. I hoped she was right. That evening, I knew I could not put off telling Mia any longer. She had noticed my distraction, the late-night phone calls, the tension whenever my father's name came up. She deserved the truth. I found her in her room, surrounded by textbooks, still working hard even though she believed her college dreams were over. The sight broke my heart all over again. Hey, sweetheart, can we talk? She looked up, immediately wary. Is this about Grandpa? I sat on the edge of her bed. How did you know? Mia shrugged, but her eyes were sad. Grandma called me last week. She did not say much, just asked how I was doing and then started crying. And you have been weird ever since you came back from their house. I took a deep breath and told her everything. The empty account, her grandfather's cold justification, the discovery that this was not an isolated incident, but a pattern stretching back decades. The lawyer, the evidence, the fight ahead. Mia listened in silence. When I finished, she did not cry. She just stared at the wall for a long moment. He always looked at me differently, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was imagining it, but whenever we visited, he would talk to me like I was, I do not know, a mistake, something that went wrong in his perfect family plan. My chest tightened. Mia. No, Mom, let me finish. She turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Not just hurt, resolve. He made you feel like having me ruined your life, like I was the reason you struggled, and now he stole my future because he thinks I do not deserve one. That is not true. None of that is true. I know. She sat up straighter. But he believes it, and he thought you would just accept it like Grandma always did. She paused. You are not going to accept it, are you? No, I said firmly. I am not. Mia nodded slowly. Then she asked a question that surprised me. Uncle Daniel's restaurant opens next month, right? The big grand opening party? I frowned. Yes. Why? Because everyone is going to be there. The whole family. Dad's business friends. Everyone he wants to impress. She looked at me with an expression far too mature for 18. If you are going to expose him, that is where you should do it. I stared at my daughter. Mia, that is. Exactly what he deserves. She reached out and took my hand. He stole my future to fund a party for Uncle Daniel, so maybe it is time his party funded some truth for everyone else. The idea was terrifying. Public confrontation had never been my style. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who cleaned up messes instead of making them. But my daughter was right. My father had operated in shadows for 30 years because no one was willing to drag his actions into the light. He counted on shame, on family loyalty, on the social pressure to keep quiet. What would happen if someone finally refused to play by those rules? Over the next few weeks, I prepared. Sandra helped me organize the most damning evidence into a clear presentation. Bank records showing the exact flow of money from my account to Daniel's restaurant vendors. My mother's documents revealing the broader pattern. The text from Daniel trying to intimidate me into silence. I also reached out to my mother again. She was still living in the house with my father, still playing the role of dutiful wife, but something had shifted in her. When we talked now, there was steel beneath the fear. I spoke to Sandra. She told me one evening, I am going to file separately, for divorce, and for recovery of everything he took from me. I almost dropped the phone. Mom, are you sure? I have been sure for 20 years, Anna. I was just too afraid to admit it. She paused. Watching you fight for Mia, it reminded me what I should have done when you were small. I am sorry I did not protect you better. You are protecting me now, I said. That is what matters. The restaurant's grand opening was scheduled for the last Saturday of the month. Invitations had gone out to everyone who mattered in my father's carefully constructed social world. Business associates, country club friends, distant relatives who still believed he was the patriarch everyone should admire. I was not invited, of course. Neither was Mia. But I had no intention of missing it. 3 days before the event, I received one more text from Daniel. This one was longer, almost pleading. Anna, I know we have not always been close, but please do not do this. Dad says you are planning something crazy. The restaurant is my dream. Whatever issues you have with Dad, leave me out of it. I did not know where the money came from. I swear. I read the message twice. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he really did not know. But then I remembered every birthday my father forgot because he was busy with Daniel. Every accomplishment of mine that was dismissed while Daniel's failures were forgiven. Every time I was told to work harder while Daniel was handed another chance. Even if Daniel did not know the specific source of the funding, he had spent his entire life benefiting from a system that treated me and my mother as resources to be exploited. I typed back a single line. Then you have nothing to worry about. The truth only hurts people who built their lives on lies. He did not respond. The night before the grand opening, Mia came to my room while I was reviewing my notes one final time. Mom, she said quietly, I want to come with you tomorrow. I looked up. Are you sure? It is going to be ugly. She nodded. He stole my future. I want to be there when he has to answer for it. I want him to see my face and know that I know exactly who he is. I pulled her into a hug. Okay, I whispered. We do this together. As I held my daughter, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. 18 years of sacrifice, a lifetime of being dismissed, diminished, treated as less than. And finally, the discovery that the man who was supposed to protect his family had been robbing us blind the entire time. Tomorrow, the mask would come off. Tomorrow, my father would learn that the daughter he had always underestimated was about to become his biggest mistake. If you knew your confrontation would tear your family apart forever, but it was the only way to get justice for your child, would you still go through with it? The morning of the grand opening arrived gray and cold, like the sky itself knew something heavy was coming. I woke up at 5, too wired to sleep. My folder of evidence sat on the kitchen table where I had left it the night before. Bank statements, transaction records, screenshots of Daniel's threatening texts. The email chain where my father had discussed reallocating family resources with his accountant. Every page was a piece of the truth he had buried for decades. Liam arrived early with coffee and a quiet steadiness that I desperately needed. He did not try to talk me out of it. He just sat beside me and said, "Whatever happens today, you are doing the right thing." Mia came downstairs dressed simply but deliberately. No jewelry, no makeup, nothing that could be twisted into she was trying to cause drama. Just a young woman who deserved answers. "Ready?" I asked her. She nodded. "I have been ready since the day I found out my college fund disappeared." We drove to the restaurant in silence. It was a beautiful building, I had to admit. Red brick, large windows, a sign that read Daniels in elegant script. My brother's name in lights, funded by my daughter's future. The parking lot was already filling up. Expensive cars, well-dressed people, the kind of crowd my father loved to impress. I recognized some faces from childhood, country club members, business partners, people who had watched my father charm his way through decades of lies. We parked at the far end of the lot and waited. "The plan is simple," I reminded Mia and Liam. "We go in during the speeches. That is when everyone will be gathered in one place, listening. That is when the truth will have the biggest impact." Liam squeezed my hand. "And if someone tries to stop you?" "Then they become part of the story," I said quietly. I am done being silenced. Through the restaurant windows, I could see the crowd mingling inside. Waiters with champagne trays. My father in his best suit, shaking hands like a politician. My mother standing slightly behind him, her smile tight and practiced. She had not told him about the divorce papers yet. That bomb would drop after mine. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "I see your car. Are you sure about this?" I typed back, "Are you?" Her reply came quickly. "Yes, it is time." At exactly 2:00, the crowd began moving toward a small stage at the back of the restaurant. Daniel stepped up to the microphone, beaming with the confidence of someone who had never been told no in his life. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "This restaurant has been my dream for years, and I could not have done it without the support of my incredible family, especially my father, who believed in me when no one else did." I watched my father nod graciously, soaking in the praise like sunlight. "Before we cut the ribbon," Daniel continued, "I would like to invite my dad up to say a few words." This was it. As my father walked toward the microphone, I stood up from my seat near the back. Liam and Mia rose with me. We moved through the crowd, and I could feel eyes turning toward us. Whispers rippled outward like stones dropped in water. My father reached the microphone just as I reached the edge of the stage. "Thank you, son," he began, his voice warm and practiced. "This is a proud moment for our family. Daniel has worked so hard to—" "Actually," I said loudly, stepping forward, "I think everyone here deserves to know exactly how hard Daniel worked, and more importantly, whose money made this moment possible." The room went silent. My father's face shifted from confusion to recognition to cold fury in the span of 2 seconds. "Anna, what are you doing here?" "Telling the truth," I replied, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "Something this family has avoided for 30 years. I turned to face the crowd, holding up the folder I had carried in. 6 weeks ago, I discovered that my savings account, the one I had been building for 18 years to send my daughter to college, was emptied. $199,000. Gone. Murmurs swept through the room. That money was taken by the man standing behind me. I pointed at my father without looking at him. He used it to fund this restaurant. My daughter's education was stolen so my brother could have his name on a building. "That is enough," my father snapped, stepping toward me. "This is a family matter. You are embarrassing yourself." "No," I said, turning to face him. "You are embarrassed because I am telling the truth in front of people you wanted to impress. There is a difference." I pulled out the first document and held it up. "This is the bank record showing the withdrawal. Authorized user your name. Purpose listed as family investment. I let the bitter irony hang in the air. Funny how you get to decide what family investment means for everyone else's money. Daniel grabbed the microphone. Anna, stop. I did not know where the money came from. Dad told me it was from savings he had set aside for years. Then you should be angry too, I replied, because our father lied to you. He lied to everyone in this room, and he has been lying for decades. I pulled out another stack of papers. These are records going back 30 years, money taken from my mother's inheritance, from accounts she did not even know existed, from every woman in this family who trusted him. The crowd had gone completely still. I could see faces shifting from confusion to shock to something harder, judgment. My father's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful, selfish girl. Everything I did was for this family. Everything. Everything you did was for yourself, I shot back. You treated the women in your life like ATMs. You took what you wanted and told us we should be grateful for whatever crumbs you left behind. I looked at my mother, still standing frozen near the stage. Her eyes were wet, but she gave me the smallest nod. My mother is filing for divorce, I announced, and she will be pursuing recovery of every dollar you stole from her over 3 decades of marriage. The gasp that went through the room was audible. My father's face went pale. Margaret, what is she talking about? My mother stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. She is talking about the truth, Richard. The truth I should have told 20 years ago. The next few minutes were chaos. Daniel was shouting at my father, demanding to know if what I said was true. My father was shouting back, calling me a liar, a traitor, a disappointment, every name he had probably wanted to call me for 18 years. My mother stood apart from both of them, tears streaming down her face, but she did not take back what she had said. That small act of defiance meant everything. Guests were whispering, some already heading for the exits. The grand opening had become a grand unraveling. A man I recognized as one of my father's business partners approached him with a hard expression. Richard, is any of this true? Did you use your granddaughter's college fund for this? My father tried to compose himself. It was a family account. I had every legal right to... That is not what I asked. The man's voice was cold. I asked if you took money meant for a child's education and spent it on your son's restaurant without telling anyone. Silence. My father could not answer because the only answer was yes. I watched his carefully constructed reputation crack in real time. The man who always knew the right thing to say suddenly had nothing. Daniel turned to me, his face a mix of anger and something else. Shame, maybe, or the beginning of it. Anna, I swear I did not know. Dad told me this was his retirement savings. He said he wanted to invest in my future because he believed in me. His voice cracked. I would never have taken Mia's college money. You have to believe me. Part of me wanted to believe him. Daniel was spoiled and entitled, but I had never thought of him as cruel. But another part remembered all the years he had benefited from our father's favoritism without ever questioning it. All the times he had accepted help that was never offered to me. Maybe you did not know, I said quietly, but you never asked where the money came from. You never wondered why Dad could fund your dreams when he spent my whole life telling me to figure things out on my own. Daniel flinched like I had slapped him. You are not innocent, Daniel. You are just comfortable, and comfort made you blind. I turned back to the crowd, raising my voice one more time. I am not here to ruin my brother's restaurant. I am here to make sure my daughter's future is not sacrificed for someone else's ambition. The legal process will determine what happens next, but everyone in this room deserves to know what kind of man Richard really is. I looked directly at my father. You spent 30 years controlling the narrative, deciding who deserved help and who deserved nothing, making the women in your family feel small so you could feel big. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. That ends today. Then I walked out. Liam and Mia followed me into the parking lot. The cold air hit my face, and suddenly I was shaking. Not from fear, from release. Decades of silence, of swallowing my anger, of being the good daughter who never made waves. All of it had finally broken free. Mia hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Mom, you were incredible." "I was terrified," I admitted. "You did not look it. You looked like someone who was done being afraid." Liam wrapped his arms around both of us. "Come on, let us get out of here before anyone decides to make things uglier." We were almost to the car when I heard footsteps behind us. I turned to see my mother hurrying across the parking lot, her heels clicking on the asphalt. "Anna, wait." I stopped. "Mom, what are you doing? I should be with my daughter," she said firmly. "I should have been with my daughter for the last 30 years. She reached us slightly out of breath, her careful makeup smudged with tears. "I am leaving him tonight," she said. "I already have a bag packed at my sister's house. I have been planning this for weeks, ever since you showed me I did not have to be afraid anymore." I stared at her. My mother, who had spent my entire childhood deferring to my father's every decision. My mother, who had apologized for things that were never her fault. My mother, who had been so beaten down by financial control that she forgot she had a voice. She was leaving. "Mom." I did not know what to say. She took my hands. "I am sorry I did not protect you better when you were young. I am sorry I let him make you feel like you were less than your brother. I am sorry I stayed quiet when I should have screamed." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "You are doing something now. That is what matters." She nodded, then looked at Mia. "And you, sweetheart, your grandmother is going to make sure you get to college. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to sell or fight for, you deserve the future your mother worked so hard to give you." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "Grandma." "We are going to be okay," my mother said softly. "All of us." For the first time in 30 years, I actually believe that. Behind us, I could hear raised voices from inside the restaurant. The party was officially over. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror at the building that bore my brother's name, a building funded by stolen dreams. My father was still inside, probably trying to salvage his reputation with whatever lies he could spin. But the truth was already out. The people who mattered had seen his mask slip, and he would never be able to put it back on. That night, my mother stayed at our house. We sat together at the kitchen table, 3 generations of women who had finally stopped accepting crumbs from a man who thought he owned us. "What happens now?" Mia asked quietly. I looked at my mother, then at Liam, then at my daughter. "Now we fight," I said, "and this time, we win." If your mother finally chose you after decades of choosing silence, would you be able to forgive everything that came before? The fallout from the grand opening was swift and brutal. Within 48 hours, local news had picked up the story. Someone at the restaurant had recorded part of my confrontation and posted it online. The video showed my father's face as I laid out the evidence, the exact moment his mask slipped and everyone saw the man beneath. Comments poured in. Most were supportive, strangers calling me brave for standing up to a narcissist. Some defended my father, claiming I had no right to air family business in public. A few called me greedy, attention-seeking, bitter. I did not read the comments for long. I had more important things to focus on. Sandra filed our lawsuit 3 days after the restaurant opening. Anna versus Richard seeking full restitution of $199,000 plus damages for emotional distress and breach of fiduciary duty. My mother filed separately. Margaret versus Richard, petition for divorce and recovery of marital assets misappropriated over 3 decades of marriage. The combined legal pressure was more than my father had ever faced. For the first time in his life, he could not charm or bully his way out of consequences. His first move was predictable. He hired an expensive lawyer and tried to get both cases dismissed. Joint accounts, he argued. Legal access. No crime committed. Sandra shut that down quickly. Legal access does not equal ethical use, she told the judge. The account was explicitly established for the minor child's education, as documented in communications spanning 18 years. The defendant knew the purpose of those funds and deliberately misappropriated them. The judge agreed to let the case proceed. My father's second move was less legal and more personal. He started calling relatives, spinning a story about how I had ambushed him, humiliated him, destroyed the family over a misunderstanding. He painted himself as a loving father who had made one mistake and was being crucified for it. Some people believed him. An aunt called to tell me I should be ashamed. A cousin posted on social media about how families should handle things privately, but others reached out with very different messages. Your father borrowed money from me 15 years ago, one distant relative wrote. He said it was for a business opportunity. I never saw a penny back. I always thought it was just bad luck. Now I am not so sure. Another message came from a woman I did not recognize. I used to work for your father's company in the 90s. He convinced me to invest my savings in a project he was running. It collapsed, and he walked away clean while I lost everything. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone. Thank you for being braver than I was. The messages kept coming. A pattern emerged that was even worse than I had imagined. My father had not just stolen from his family, he had spent decades manipulating anyone who trusted him. Sandra added these accounts to our documentation. The more we can show this was systematic behavior, the stronger our case becomes, she said. Your father is not a good man who made one mistake. He is a predator who targeted people who trusted him. The word predator made my stomach turn, but I could not deny it fit. Meanwhile, Daniel tried to reach out. He sent emails, left voicemails, even showed up at my house once. I did not let him in. I just want to talk, he said through the door. I want to understand what happened. I want to make things right. You want me to tell you it is not your fault, I replied, without opening the door. You want absolution without accountability. I cannot give you that. Anna, please. The restaurant is struggling now. People are canceling reservations, leaving bad reviews. They think I knew about the money. They think I am like him. Then prove you are not, I said. Testify. Tell the court what Dad told you about where the money came from. Help Mom recover what was stolen from her. Do something that actually costs you something. Silence on the other side of the door. I did not think so, I said quietly. Goodbye, Daniel. He left. I did not hear from him again for weeks. The court date approached slowly, each day feeling like a year. My mother moved into a small apartment near my house, finally free from the man who had controlled her for 3 decades. She was different now, quieter in some ways, but stronger in others. She smiled more. She made decisions without asking permission. She was discovering who she was without someone else defining her. Mia applied to colleges again, this time with realistic expectations. We could not guarantee the money would come back before enrollment deadlines, so she applied for scholarships, financial aid, everything available. She worked harder than I had ever seen her work. Even if we win, she told me one night, I want to know I earned this. I do not want anyone to ever say I got where I am because someone handed it to me. I had never been prouder of her. The trial lasted 4 days. Sandra presented our evidence methodically. Bank records, communication logs, testimony from my mother about decades of financial control, statements from other victims who had come forward. My father's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, a bitter daughter who had never forgiven her father for being strict. He suggested I had always planned to use the joint account money myself and was angry that my father had acted first. Under cross-examination, I stayed calm. I worked double shifts for 18 years, I said quietly. I missed my daughter's school plays because I was picking up extra hours. I wore the same coat for 6 winters because every spare dollar went into that account. Does that sound like someone who planned to spend the money on herself? The lawyer had no response. My father took the stand in his own defense. He was charming, articulate, and utterly unconvincing. Every answer sounded rehearsed. Every expression of regret felt calculated. When Sandra asked him directly whether he had known the money was intended for Mia's education, he hesitated just long enough for everyone to see the truth. "I believed the funds could be better utilized elsewhere," he finally said. "It was a judgment call." "A judgment call," Sandra repeated, "about money that was not yours to judge." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the foreperson read the verdict in a clear, steady voice. "We find in favor of the plaintiff, full restitution of $199,000, plus additional damages of $75,000 for emotional distress and breach of fiduciary duty." I did not cry. I did not cheer. I just sat there, feeling something I had not felt in months: peace. After 30 years of being told I was not enough, a room full of strangers had looked at the evidence and said, "You were right. He was wrong, and he has to pay." My mother's case settled out of court 2 weeks later. Faced with the momentum of my verdict and mounting evidence of decades of financial abuse, my father agreed to a divorce settlement that gave my mother 60% of their assets. He kept the house, but he had to sell it to pay his legal fees and judgments. The man who had built his identity on appearing successful was now drowning in consequences. I did not feel sorry for him. Some people might call that cold. I called it justice. When the first restitution payment arrived in Mia's new college account, I stared at the number for a long time. It was not just money. It was proof that the truth matters, that standing up for yourself is worth the cost, that sometimes the people who hurt you the most are finally forced to face what they have done. Mia stood beside me, looking at the same screen. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it," I agreed. Together. 6 months after the verdict, I stood in a parking lot surrounded by boxes, watching my daughter prepare to leave for college. The campus was everything she had dreamed of: old brick buildings covered in ivy, students laughing on green lawns, a future that had almost been stolen from her, now spread out like an open road. Mia carried the last box from the car, then stopped and looked around with wide eyes. "I still cannot believe I am actually here," she said softly. "Believe it," I replied. "You earned this. Every late night studying, every scholarship essay, every moment you refused to give up. This is yours." She set down the box and hugged me tightly. "It is ours, Mom. I would not be here without you." I held her close, breathing in the moment. 18 years of sacrifice, fear, and hope had led to this parking lot, this campus, this beginning. Liam stood nearby, giving us space, but close enough that I could feel his steady presence. He had been my rock through everything: the discovery, the confrontation, the trial, the aftermath. He never tried to fix things for me. He just stood beside me while I fixed them myself. "Ready to see your room?" he asked Mia gently. She wiped her eyes and grinned. "Ready." We walked across campus together, and I thought about how different this moment could have been. 6 months ago, Mia had been deleting college newsletters, convinced her future was over. Now she was walking into a dormitory with her name on the door. Some victories are measured in dollars recovered. Others are measured in dreams restored. After we finished setting up her room, Mia walked us back to the car. The goodbye was harder than I expected. I had spent 18 years preparing for this moment, and still it felt like someone was pulling my heart out through my chest. "Call me whenever you need anything," I said, my voice cracking. "Even if it is just to talk, even if it is 3 a.m. "I will," she promised. "And Mom, thank you. Not just for the money or the fight. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like. I used to think being strong meant never asking for help. You taught me it means standing up for yourself even when everyone tells you to sit down." I could not speak. I just held her one more time. As Liam and I drove away, I watched the campus shrink in the rearview mirror until it disappeared entirely. My daughter was starting her life. and for the first time in 18 years, I was starting mine. The months that followed brought changes I never expected. My mother flourished in ways that surprised everyone, including herself. She took a part-time job at a local bookstore, something my father would never have allowed. She joined a support group for women recovering from financial abuse. She started painting again, a hobby she had abandoned decades ago when my father called it a waste of time. "I forgot who I was," she told me one evening, showing me a watercolor of the sunset. "I spent so long being Richard's wife that I forgot I was Margaret first." Watching her rediscover herself was like watching someone come back from the dead. The woman I remembered from childhood, the one who laughed easily and dreamed boldly, had been buried under 30 years of control. Now she was digging herself out, one small choice at a time. Daniel and I remained distant. He never testified against our father, never publicly acknowledged what had happened. The restaurant struggled for months before he sold it to pay off debts. Last I heard, he had taken a job at someone else's company, finally learning what it felt like to work for something instead of having it handed to him. I did not hate him, but I did not trust him either. Some relationships cannot survive the weight of what was never said. As for my father, the man who had controlled everything for so long found himself with nothing left to control. He moved into a small apartment after selling the house. His business contacts stopped returning calls. The friends who had admired his success quietly disappeared when they learned how that success was built. He tried to reach out to me once, about a year after the trial. A letter arrived at my house, handwritten, 3 pages long. I read it carefully, looking for something real, an apology, an acknowledgement, anything that suggested he understood what he had done. Instead, I found excuses. He had been under pressure. He had made difficult decisions for the good of the family. He had never meant to hurt anyone. The letter ended with a request that I move past this and restore our relationship. Not once did he say he was sorry. Not once did he admit he was wrong. I did not write back. Some people think forgiveness means pretending the wound never happened. I have learned it means accepting that the wound is real, that it changed you, and that you do not owe your healing to the person who hurt you. I forgave my father in the sense that I stopped carrying rage around like a stone in my chest. But forgiveness did not mean reconciliation. It did not mean trust. It did not mean opening the door to someone who had never once taken responsibility for walking through it with a knife. On the anniversary of the trial verdict, Mia came home for a weekend visit. We sat on the porch together, watching the sun go down, talking about her classes and her new friends and the life she was building. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "The confrontation, the trial, all of it. Do you ever wish you had just let it go?" I thought about the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary," I finally said. "I wish I had a father who loved me more than he loved control. I wish my mother had not lost 30 years to fear. I wish you had never had to learn that family can betray you." I paused, looking at her. "But do I regret fighting? No, not for 1 second. Because if I had stayed quiet, you would have learned that it is okay for people to steal from you as long as they share your last name. You would have learned that women should accept whatever scraps they are given and be grateful. You would have learned that the truth is less important than keeping the peace." I took her hand. "I wanted to teach you something different. I wanted to teach you that your voice matters, that your future matters, that no one, not even family, has the right to take what you have earned and call it love." Mia squeezed my hand. "You did, Mom. You taught me all of that." We sat in silence as the last light faded from the sky. Somewhere out there, my father was alone with the consequences of his choices. Somewhere out there, my brother was learning that privilege does not protect you forever. And here, on this porch, 3 generations of women had finally broken a cycle that had held them captive for decades. My mother was painting again, my daughter was thriving, and I was no longer the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who absorbed harm and called it duty. I was Anna. a mother, a fighter, a woman who had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes protecting your family means protecting them from your family. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth out loud, even when everyone around you is begging you to stay silent. If you could go back and change one moment in your family history, would you? Or would you trust that every painful step led you exactly where you needed to be?